and Nawaf was the host for all of this work. So this goes way back with many of these individuals. I would probably say that humanitarian aid and disability inclusion within the humanitarian sphere has probably been the area where we have succeeded the most. In Finnish humanitarian policy and European policy, disability was not very much concerned when it comes to humanitarian sphere, maybe 15 years ago. But then the process after the Istanbul summit and the creation of IASC standards, where we were very actively with Finland, humanitarian aid and persons with disabilities is actually now the single biggest thematic approach of Finnish humanitarian policy. So the change has actually been very, very big. But since we are not a humanitarian organization in itself, we still, I think we all need to work together so that persons with disabilities can actually participate, not just be recipients of aid or recipients of humanitarian interventions, but to get persons with disabilities an actor role, empowered role in the world of humanitarian aid. And that requires us working with local OPDs, with Abilis connections, and then it requires supportive humanitarian organizations like Finchurch Aid, who are then using this kind of expertise and allowing OPDs to work. So this is a little bit the kind of context that why we are so close to Finchurch Aid and why the topic has been so relevant to us. And then the thematic of today, the disability issue in peacebuilding, we have been working on this topic since early 22. We decided that since there is a framework on development and humanitarian, we really need to bring disability into peace sphere. So we have consulted a lot with the actor agencies here in Finland and then worked with Finnish experts on the topic. So Religious Peacemakers Network of Mr. Mohammed Elsanousi, and then some Finnish expert actors such as Safer Globe and CMI, and created these kind of events and public relations and done like consultative work. But we haven't really done been able to progress to practice. And when Mr. Gerard Quinn was the UN Special Rapporteur on persons with disabilities, he even noted that there is now this kind of a momentum to talk about disability in humanitarian law and conflicts, but very little has actually been done yet. And peace actors do not know persons with disabilities, and to OPDs, the peace building processes and all the other are very not very clear. They do not understand the division between humanitarian and peace sphere, which I think is very important if we can talk about that today, because everything connotates. And due to this work, we started our own small level think tank work last year, and we created a document about disability in armed conflicts. I will share it to, we can share the link here to this chat, but Abilis published if I can just, I can answer questions in a moment. So
the speaker is too fast for an interpreter really to relay the communication. Maybe you can slow down, if possible.
So,
Thomas, if you could just slow down, you're speaking.
Sure. So we published the document, Disability in Armed Conflicts, 2 weeks ago. It's a document focusing on a few war zones and armed conflicts and the situation of persons with disabilities. And we had a very successful event launch here in Finland, where we met Mr. Elsanousi and our Abilis Ukraine country coordinator came to the publication. There are people also, Mr. Nawaf is one of the expertise persons to hear in this process. And now with this document on conflicts, we're actually moving forward. So we have this kind of plan of action with the peace sphere, and FCA is of course included in that. And then FCA responded, has been the first organization that then responded to our desire to go a little bit more into practice, because we have talked about disability in peace sphere with actors, but it's been like high level and more, it's been more focused on policy than practice. And we had a feeling that we would like to do something very practical at very grassroots level that would be useful and could be tested. And that kind of created this momentum where FCA and Abilis and Peacebuilders Network decided to start, and we don't really see this as any kind of ending. We view this kind of documentation and toolbox as a way to start and bring the OPDs kind of in practicality into the floor when it comes to working around peace sphere. And then our hope is that after using this kind of toolkit and yielding practical experiences also for us talking this with different countries, we can then move forward in like process kind of way and develop practical goals for us, that what should we as disability rights work within the peace sphere, peace building sphere, fragile states, disaster risk reduction, what are the most concrete needed steps. So we view this kind of first practical toolkit very useful. So I will conclude here, but we're happy to, and if there are like questions and topics, I think we can put them to the chat during this entire session. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas. I think you framed the discussion very perfectly, giving that great overview. So now I have the pleasure of turning to our high-level opening remarks. So let me introduce Dr. Nawaf Kabara, who is the chair of the International Disability Alliance.
Thank you very much, Jessica. And hello, everyone. And Thomas, hello, miss you. The question of peace building and disability is a very crucial and important subject that has two conflicting dimensions. The first one is that conflict, violence, wars are the most important enemy to mankind in general, but to persons with disability in particular. And that's in twofold. One, that wars, conflict, and violence produces disability. Second, that people with disability in situation of conflict are the biggest losers. Gaza is just in front of you. And you can see what's happening. Now we're talking about genocide in Gaza. There was a genocide for persons with disability from the beginning. Because when you give people 5 minutes to leave their places, you're telling a person with disability living in a third floor that you are going to lose your life. Ukraine is another example. So in this regard, persons with disability have large interest in working for peace and promoting peace and trying to prevent conflicts and wars. On the other hand, many persons with disabilities who are victims of violence were themselves warriors. And they became disabled because of war action. These people consider themselves heroes. They are supported by either their military group with whom they are working, and without it, they cannot continue and survive. And therefore, these people may not have interest in pushing the disability movement toward peace work. So this is a challenge. However, if you go into history, we have some instances where persons with disability were very active against wars. Thomas mentioned the activities we used in Lebanon, for example. During the Civil War, the disability movement in Lebanon was the first to launch the first protest against the continuation of the war, where a group of persons with disability marched from north to south of the country, protesting for 4 days the continuation of violence in the country. This march has triggered civil disobedience and protest against the war, and has played a major role in reaching an end to the civil war in Lebanon. Another example I would give, during the war in Serbia and Herzegovina, there was a mission by persons with disability from 8 countries who went there, who visited persons with disability there, who registered places, what's going on in the place of refugees there, and show the disability movement as a solid actor for peace and human rights. Today, my dear friends, the world is watching a situation of increasing conflict and tension. I am from the Middle East. I can hear the voices of possible war between Iran and Israel and the United States. We are already facing the bombardment of Gaza and Lebanon and Syria. We know what's happening between Yemen and Israel, and so on. If we go to Ukraine, instead of stopping the war is increasing in tension. There are also lots of tension in the Asia Pacific. This creates a strong alarm for all of us to work hard to make sure and to make the decision makers know that people are not going to sit and leave them, leads us to disaster. We've seen lots of protests worldwide. Maybe they were not effective enough to stop what was happening in Gaza, for example. But nevertheless, I think they have created the environment for anti-war, anti-violence, and human rights. Person with disability cannot stay neutral or negative towards such a mission. It's a mission that we are obliged to take it. I remember once there was some sort of tension in Lebanon between 2 religious groups. So we made some sort of protest, we persons with disability, we made a protest between the 2. And what we told them, if you want to know what's going to happen to you if you start clashing, is look at us, what you've done to us because of the war. It's so easy to get excited and go to war, but it's so difficult and miserable to deal with the impact of violence and war. My dear friend, the International Disability Alliance, the Arab Organization of Persons with Disability, and OPDs all over are committed to human rights, are committed to people talking to each other, negotiating, are committed to international law, are committed to accepting difference, democracy, and they refuse violence, war, and human sacrifice. And I would say suicide, human suicide. Any war in the future is the end of humanity. Because you all can see what kind of world is going to be. I highly appreciate what Abilis is doing. And Abilis is we have a long history of working together. And we're looking forward for more cooperation. And I will get your message to IDA and see how IDA can be also very effective and active in this domain. My dear friend, I don't want to take too much of your time, but I would say, let's move now before we become very sorry tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Kabara. I think your remarks really helped us to ground where the conversation is today. And I think, you know, the real point of the dialogue today is really trying to capture how partnerships between OPDs and peace building organizations, whether it be in any point of the conflict cycle in conflict prevention, conflict response, and post-conflict environments is critical to have these partnerships at all stages. So I'm very excited to be able to hear from you all today on how we can do this. Before we open it up to the floor to have a dialogue on a couple of guiding questions that we have for the discussion today, I want to first give it to SIDA Molla, who is the project manager for Finn Church Aid Somalia, to present on the findings from this specific project that might help to gauge some ideas for our conversation in the consultation part of this discussion. So I turn it to you, SIDA. Okay. Well, maybe we'll come back to him. He may be having internet issues. Okay, so then I will turn it to the floor. We really want to hear from all of you on the work that you've been doing in this area. So the first question that I would put to the group: what opportunities do you see advancing persons with disabilities in peace building, including in conflict prevention, conflict response, and in post-conflict settings? And can you share any positive case study examples or resources?
Jessica, now it
yes.
is okay. Yeah, you
Okay.
can share the presentation. Yes, it is.
Okay.
Okay. You can share the presentation. Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah. Thank you, colleagues. Good morning and good afternoon. Actually, for the last 1 year, Abilis Foundation and one national organization have been working to develop a tool on promoting disability inclusion in the peace process across Somalia. Jessica, Mila, I have worked with Abilis Foundation as well as one of the local organization to develop this tool. Next. Yeah. So now I will present. It is very long document, but I will highlight 8 things. First, I will highlight some context analysis. Already, many of the speakers have elaborated the context, especially peace building, relationship between peace building and war with disability inclusion. Then I will discuss about objectives, then target audience for this disability tool. Then we will also discuss about guiding principles for developing these tools, then barriers and guidelines and good practices, and then the role and responsibilities of different stakeholders, and finally I will highlight what is the next step from Somalia. Yeah, Jessica.
Just make sure to speak slowly.
Okay. Yeah, context is you know very well about the context in Somalia. The country has been suffering from conflict, political instability and humanitarian crisis for the last 3 decades. And this conflict, political instability, and humanitarian crisis have led to widespread displacement, collapse of public services, and erosion of social cohesion. Uh, and as per the report from National Disability Report by Somali National Bureau of Statistics, that around 12% of the Somalis adult population live with any kind of disability. Uh, and since the formation of the federal government in 2012, the peacebuilding effort has got a momentum, but the persons with disabilities have remained largely excluded from the formal and informal peace process. And in addition to that, armed conflict has similarly exacerbated the vulnerabilities of those pre-existing impairments. And Somali country has been based on clan-based power structure, and you will find gender inequalities, limited accessibility in infrastructure and information system, which actually reinforce the social exclusion of persons with disabilities from political participation, humanitarian response, and post-conflict recovery. Uh, there is a positive sign as well, that Somalia government has ratified the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, which means that they have the commitment to promote and protect the rights of persons with disabilities in peace process. It has also reinforced by the UN Security Council Resolution 2475, which mandates the inclusion of persons with disabilities in all aspects of peace and security, particularly in conflict and post-conflict context. These international frameworks oblige Somali state and its partners to take proactive steps to ensure meaningful participation of persons with disabilities in national development and peace building. Next, Jessica. Yeah. Then despite these commitments, we can see that peace negotiation and consultation in Somalia continue to take place in inaccessible venues without the provision of reasonable accommodation, such as sign language interpretation or accessible formats for communication. Then organizations of persons with disabilities are often excluded from decision-making space or involved only in a tokenistic ways. Women and girls with disabilities, youth with disabilities, and members of marginalized minority groups face compounded discrimination, often left voiceless in discussion about the very peace and recovery process that shape their lives. Persons with disabilities in Somalia face systematic exclusion from peace dialogue, mainly due to physical, attitudinal, institutional, and communication barriers. Next. So this tool has been developed after conducted an assessment of the current disability issues, as well as connection with peace building. So on the basis of this study, Abilis Foundation and CSED have jointly developed this toolkit, and the main objective is to guide and support stakeholders at all levels in integrating disability inclusion throughout Somalia's peace process. Next. Uh, this toolkit has identified 11 target audience to implement this toolkit. First is high-level government policymakers, then donor agencies and implementing partners, then civil society organizations, district-level authorities, peace committees, community members, traditional leaders, IDP camp leaders, religious leaders, humanitarian organization and peace programmers, and finally media practitioners. Next. It has been developed on the basis of 8 principles. First one is definitely the Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities, then UN Security Council Resolution 2475, the Nothing About Us, Nothing Without Us principles, then intersectionality, rights-based approach, equality and non-discrimination, leave no one behind, and universal design and accessibility. Next. So we have found that there are at least 6 barriers to actually enhance disabled people participation in peace process. First one is the stigma and discrimination, and we have found that the societal attitudes continue to marginalize persons with disabilities, leading to social exclusion and limited opportunities. Then inaccessible infrastructure is a very serious problem in Somalia. And then non-inclusive communication. And if you really join in any event organized by the government or NGOs, you will find that there is no facilities for disabled people to participate in the discussion. And then there are limited awareness among persons with disabilities as well as duty bearers. Then lack of personal equipment is very serious problem here to ensure participation of disabled people in the peace process. And finally, definitely, the weak implementation on liver framework is one of the barrier for ensuring participation of disabled people in the peace process. Next. Actually, this tool has suggested uh, seven steps. First one is a step-by-step guidance for disability inclusion in peace process, and it has identified 7 steps. First one is situation analysis, then stakeholder mapping, policy and legal alignment, capacity sharing, inclusive planning and implementation, monitoring, evaluation, accountability, and learning, and finally, the most important is that resource available to implement this tool. Next. Then the second one is policy review and inclusion audit. In the report, in the toolkit, we have also suggested several template for policy review and inclusion audits. Then it has also provided some guidelines in stakeholder consultation. Then how planning can be done to give the access to disabled people in the peace discussion process, as then a representation mechanism, for instance quotas, advisory roles, as well as finally persons with disabilities, inclusion monitoring and accountability. Then so the tool has given some guidelines to 11 stakeholders to play a role in enhancing disabled people in the peace process. For the top government policymakers, it has identified 3 major important functions. First one is policy and legal reform, then institutional oversight, and then finally budgeting and resources for different projects and programs. Next. Then district level officials and local governments. It has also identified 3 key important functions of district level officials. First one is local peace process planning, then venue accessibility oversight, and finally liaison and coordination. Next. Then humanitarian organization and peace programmers. It has identified 3 major role of humanitarian organization and peace programmers. First one is inclusive program design. When any program will be designed, it should be inclusive and it should add or include disability issues in program design. Then capacity building support as well as resource mobilization. And then peace committees and reconciliation forum. It has identified 3 major rules of peace committees and reconciliation forums. First one is inclusive membership. When there will be form any peace committees, they should also focus to include more membership from disabled people. Then when they will organize dialogue, it should be accessible for disabled people. And finally, dispute mediation. Next. Then civil organization and organization for persons with disabilities. It has identified 4 major roles. First one is advocacy and accountability, then capacity building, and finally documentation. Next. Media. It has identified 4 major role of media. First one is storytelling awareness about different issues on peacebuilding as well as participation of persons with disabilities. And then it also identified accessible content creation, and finally watchdog roles. Next. Then traditional leaders, it has also identified three major roles for traditional leaders. First one is cultural mediation, then conflict resolution champions, then legitimization of inclusion. Next. Then religious leaders, they should play important role in moral influence, and then peace pitching as well as safe space providers. Next. Camp leaders in IDP as well as refugee camps. The tool has identified three major roles of camp leaders. One is representation, and here when they will form any committees, they should also focus to include more from disability people. Then protection monitoring and service facilitation. Next. Donor agencies and implement partners. When uh, donor give a grant to any NGOs, they should also check financial inclusion of disabled people in the project implementation. They should also give support in technical backstopping, and they should also provide support in monitoring and evaluation. Next. Okay, so what are the next steps? We have identified that there are four major steps for the next for implement this. First one is dissemination among 11 types of stakeholders in Somalia. We will organize a dissemination workshop soon with 11 types of stakeholders, so that everybody understands their roles and responsibilities, and they can actually identify the challenges to implement this tool. Then we will try to encourage all types of stakeholders to use this tool, and then we will review the effectiveness of the tool, and finally, on the basis of this, we will finalize the tool for using globally. Yeah, that's all from my end, Jessica.
Thank you, Cider. I think that this shows a good example of what this partnership between looking at the gaps in the peace building sector in partnering with OPDs can look like. But this is specifically for, of course, the Somali context. But that's why we wanted to be able to ground some of the findings as an example. But now want to open it up to all of you to hear from you based on your context and experience of how we can promote these partnerships between OPDs and the peace building sector more broadly. So the first, and if you have a question for Cider, please put it in the chat and he can follow up with you directly. But the first question I would put to the group, and please, you can raise your virtual hand from the screen below, or if you prefer to put it in the chat. But the first question I would ask to the group is, what opportunities do you see advancing persons with disabilities in peace building, including in conflict prevention, conflict response, and in post-conflict settings? And can you share positive case study examples or resources? So really trying to focus on some really good case studies that we can elevate. So I've put the question also in the chat, but Caroline, I see that your hand is raised, so I go to you first.
Well, thank you. I wanted to respond to the question about the best practices and case studies, and how we can solve the issue of peace builders with disability. Well, there are quite many challenges existing there. For example, in South Sudan, there's war, there's no war, but there's no peace. So a lot of situations are happening there. So I was thinking the best thing we can do is that we can identify the needs of So we need to identify the needs of peace builders who are persons with disability. First of all is communication and information. A lot of the persons cannot communicate effectively or even present a message to the people who are hearing. And so the hearing cannot communicate with them. So that is an issue. Secondly, reasonable accommodation. For example, some person would like really to perform, but they have no reasonable accommodation. There are other issues like mental health, effects of war, like trauma. They affect their mind. So we need to really conduct training, mental health training to persons with disabilities. And also we need to inclusion of decision makers in the processes, especially disability inclusion. A lot of countries experience war, but they have not involved persons with disability in peace building. So they are not deciding in the process. They speak for them and they exploded in the process. But remember, they have rights in their own country and they are legal citizens in those countries. But that's not fair if they are not represented and part of the decision making. So the challenge in the disability movement, sometimes most of these things are not accessible for persons with disability. For example, representation. If we have a meeting, they are not involving persons with disability. So they are separated from these engagements. It poses a big, also discrimination of persons with disability. They are not engaged to participate in these programs, basically because of attitude and other barriers. So this limits their input in the processes. Also, financial resources are very limited. There are no finances to participate in most of these activities. So the way to really get solution is through advocacy and involving participation in peace building processes. Also involved, we need to conduct disability inclusion, peace building training. For example, peace builders can really be advocates in this field. So we need to have more accessible information and communication for persons with disability. So we need to empower peace builders with disability so that they can really have effective representation and carry on advocacy activities independently. Thank you. That's what I have.
Thank you, Caroline, and for providing feedback from the South Sudanese context. And please, as you all give your interventions, do introduce yourself. So I think, Florence, you were trying to come in if you want to say something.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, it has been very difficult for me to raise up my hand, but I'm glad I have an opportunity to talk. Thank you, Jessica, for organizing this, and thank you all the presenters. I will provide a general perspective of the opportunities we have in ensuring peace building that is inclusive. First of all, the recognition of the UN Security Council in their resolution of persons with disabilities and acknowledging them as important people in the peace building process provides a fundamental milestone, and therefore a priority to most of the states to develop frameworks and strategies to promote inclusive peace building for all, because when conflicts come, they disproportionately affect persons with disabilities. And some of these are the opportunities. For example, signing inclusive peace agreements by state parties and organizations of persons with disabilities to commit to be inclusive, to resource the processes of ensuring that persons with disabilities access the information regarding peace and conflict resolution, to ensure that they access food during times of emergencies is very, very critical, and giving persons with disabilities and their organizations the opportunity to identify their needs, which include accessibility, support services, and reasonable accommodation, is very, very important. The other issue is about capacity building, ensuring that peace programmers build the capacities of persons with disabilities and all those involved in providing humanitarian response to ensure that they are inclusive, that they don't discriminate, and acquire knowledge and skills in disability inclusion is also an important opportunity that we can take advantage of. Providing roles to persons with disabilities themselves in the peace building processes and initiatives as partners and not only recipients will bring on board, first of all, lived experience, the needs-based, evidence-based initiatives, and ensuring that they are heard, their voices are heard is important. And responses, inclusive responses or inclusive humanitarian responses must be planned in consultation with organizations of persons with disabilities because they have a critical role to play in inclusion. The fact that the UN Security Council resolution is not binding shouldn't be an issue, but then there should be a collective responsibility to make sure that there are commitments, for example, from the Global Disability Summit, to make sure that states are put to task to report on the progress of ensuring humanitarian response that is inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence, calling in from Uganda. And I go now to Mushimana.
Thank you, Jessica. This is Gaudence Mushimiyimana, and I'm the Executive Director of Rwandan Organization of Women with Disabilities. So I'm thankful that you organized this kind of connection and discussions because the aspect of peace building, security, if I can call it, it's an untapped area when it comes to disability advocacy issues. So to me, that was really great to see that there's someone who is looking at this untapped area. When I come back to opportunities, in addition to what my colleagues shared, I might say that at this time, building on the resolution 1325, we have also national peace and security plans in all our countries. We have as an opportunity that we need to build on. But also we have seen another opportunity coming up, the Global Disability Summit, and this is a platform where organization of persons with disabilities engage with the government and can push for commitment on this specific area. Like in my country, from the Global Disability Summit 2018, we managed to secure a commitment on registration of refugees with disabilities. So this is a platform that we can use for advocacy and advancing the issues of disability in the peace and security sector. The other opportunity is that organization of persons with disabilities are at least we're organized to push for advocacy, and this is for me a big opportunity. When organized, when they're taking leadership, then they can also manage a kind of collective advocacy to push for inclusive peace building and security agenda. In addition to that, like in my organization, we focus on two strategic areas. It's empowering girls and women with disabilities. We organize them into what we call self-advocacy groups at the local level, the lowest local level, where the services are delivered, where the main policies and strategy are being implemented. And then from there, they can engage with local authority and the other stakeholders. And we go beyond that to provide a kind of capacity building to the stakeholders, including those engaged in the peace building. We have a specific module on disability mainstreaming, where we talk about intersectionality of gender and disability, but also we provide a kind of advisory for better inclusion of persons with disabilities. So, and we have seen this kind of approach, empowering persons with disabilities, but also creating such kind of engagement and safe space for persons with disability, women with disability can engage with the stakeholders. And this is creating a kind of trust. We all know that when it comes to advocacy, most of the people feel like, those are the issues of vulnerable groups, just because they don't understand. And when you create such kind of space, this is where women with disability can trust in stakeholders, but also stakeholders are open to understand what is happening around, but also what they can do. So all those are the opportunities that I feel like we can build on advancing the agenda of peace building and security for the interest of persons with disabilities in our countries. Thank you.
Thank you, Gardens from Rwanda. And I also see Isabel's comment in the chat about another important stakeholder group, the combatant commanders, and their role in incorporating disability awareness and inclusion. Now I turn it to MD Monorazaman Khan. Where are you calling from?
Hi Jessica, hi everyone. This is Moniruzzaman Khan from Bangladesh, and my organization name is Bangladesh Disabled Development Trust. At first, thank you so much, Jessica, for inviting us to participate this strategic consultation. Maybe you got our number from the Abilis checklist because we implemented 2 projects from Abilis Foundation in 2013. It make me very pleasure that I saw the opening remarks is very excellent, and the toolkits which is presented by Syed Mullah, that has also covered everything. So the first opportunity remarks that I would like to bring here, normally in terms of Bangladesh, persons with disabilities are considered as a backward people. So opportunity is there, their skill will be developed. So the second opportunity, I think their acceptance will be increased, because in the society, people with disabilities acceptance is less compared to other in terms of considering the South Asia culture and political situation, regional aspect, etc. So I think their acceptance will be increased. This is the second opportunity. And the third opportunity is the discrimination will be decreased, because they will be empowered. People with disabilities, whenever they contribute or they will be empowered, so the discrimination will be decreased. Thank you so much.
Thank you, MD. And I also saw that Isabel made another good point about moving away from just a security-focused approach to broader participation and inclusion. I think throughout the whole peace building sector approach. So I think that's a good point.
Yeah.
Others that would like to share on positive case study examples or resources that you would want to raise in advancing persons with disabilities in peace building? If not, I would go to the second question, and you can always add to the first. But what specific needs do peace builders with disabilities have that the international community should prioritize advancing? Anybody would want to comment?
Jessica, can I share from my
Yes,
end?
go ahead.
Okay, thank you so much. So I think on behalf of my organization, Bangladesh Disabled Development Trust, the disabled people, the second issue was the specific need. Do peace builders with disability have that the international community should prioritize? So as I discussed in the opportunity portion, that the people with person with disability, they need to empower. So I think the international community, they should given advantages to the person with disabilities to build their capacity, so they will able to contribute in peacemaking process, or they will be able to keep themselves in peacemaking process. The second issue is that to please be ensured to take participant in all religious, political, cultural event. Ensuring the participation of person with disabilities in such sort of event is also needed. So whenever the person with disabilities will be empowered through skill development, enhancing their participation in the social, cultural, and political political function, so they will be able to do something in terms of peacemaking.
Thank you. I see MD Jahingar Alam.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, so this is Jahangir Alam, living with visual disability. And basically, I would like to raise a few points on this against the question. One thing, we need the technical support from mainstream development actors regarding the technical research and on human capacity development is very much essential to raise our voice and as an self-advocate. Second issue is the capacity development for skill development, already my another fellow raised. And third issue is the technology support, the digital support required considering the skill and resources. And third thing is the financial abilities, as because the OPDs are too poor in the context of Bangladesh and in the context of Southeast region of Asia, is because there is no specific allocations from the government side and there is no available support from the other development sector. That's why it is very much essential. Without fuel, the cars cannot reach or move. So it is very much essential. And finally, I think that it should be the cross-cutting issue jointly. That means the togetherness in between mainstream development actors and OPD together. So without togetherness, we cannot do much. So that's why I raise a number of points that is important. In the context of Bangladesh, we have a good number of OPDs, good number of activists, those who are very much potential in national and international level consideration. We have the strong commitment by the governments. We have the international commitment by the governments. And finally, we have changing the attitude by the mainstream development actors, but we need support. So twin track approach is very much essential to apply for seeking the opportunities to ensure the dream of leaving no one behind. So that's all from my end. Over to you.
Thank you. And I see we have a number of good follow-ups to what your points were in the chat. I see Agnes has said that they have lived experiences in managing and preventing conflict, and how persons with disabilities can act in peer support. And Agnes, if you want to come in and share more, would love to hear from you. I also see Isabel made the important point that even though UN Security Council Resolution 2475 urges for equal and meaningful participation. Persons with disabilities are often excluded from these high-level discussions and policy formulation and program design, which Stephanie also built on, saying that we need to go away from tokenism and look at more meaningful participation, and not just engaging persons with disability from the subject of just disability rights, but really looking at peace building as a holistic approach in mainstreaming the full meaningful participation of persons with disabilities. But I saw Caroline, your hand was raised.
Hi, Jessica. Can I say something small?
Yes, go ahead, Florence.
Go ahead. Yeah. The specific needs of persons or of international peacemakers with disabilities are the need for support services, including personal assistance, because there could be peacemakers who are blind or need sign language interpretation, so they need that support to be able to work effectively. There is also need for, in light of support services, assistive devices, because conflict disabled people the more. So you might find that peacemakers need to provide wheelchairs, white canes, hearing aids, and other assistive devices that may be required, as well as assistive technology. So that's in light of support services. Conflicts also bring about a lot of violence. So peacemakers with disabilities need protection, and we need to find ways of putting in place effective measures to protect persons with disabilities from violence, especially those working in conflict areas. This is very critical because, of course, they're already vulnerable. They're trying to work and make sure they make a contribution, but then where there is violence, they cannot work effectively. Most of the mainstream budgets do not include persons with disabilities or peacemakers with disabilities, and we end up seeing that the lack of resources become a hindrance to the work of peacemakers with disabilities. So we want to pray that budgets are made to be as inclusive as possible, that humanitarian workers are trained on inclusive budgeting to ensure that disability is given a priority and an indicator upon which upon which progress is reported, to make sure that at least the distribution of resources is as inclusive as possible. Yeah, those are really the specific needs, and maybe the one last one is conducting a needs assessment, especially before implementing a project on peace building for persons with disabilities. Especially now, this is where the role of organizational persons with disabilities is important. They have lived the experience and they can support this process. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence. Going to Caroline.
Oh, well, thank you. Well, I've had a posting about representation of persons with disability in peace building. But we shall have challenges, but we shall not have big voice. So I will think that we can make a coalition of peace builders with disability to ease the advocacy effort, so that in the countries experiencing wars or conflicts, it's very easy to advocate for inclusive approaches, other than really leaving out issues that are of disability concern. So it will ease our advocacy effort. I feel like it can work as an umbrella organization for peace builders with disability. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline. I go now to Gaudens.
Thank you. What I feel like their specific need for PC builders with disabilities is that a kind of flexible funding to be able to pilot what can work, the good practices, but also can design comprehensive program design. They can engage with stakeholders to influence their agenda. But the other thing is knowledge and skills, because this is really a strange area. I remember last time I had a call from the GIZ and I wanted to apply. But putting it together one paragraph on Peacebuilding, I was asking, what am I going to put in? We are not in a war. What am I going to put in? Until I read through the national plan and I can see, this is a comprehensive program that you can even include economic empowerment and whatever. So that kind of skills for better understanding what the concept itself, what are also the context in our countries is very relevant as peace builders. We also need such kind of networking and learning from each other, where we can have access to the good practices in disability and peace building as peace builders. The other thing is self-protection for peace builders. This is a risky area that where those activists, they need really a kind of reasonable accommodation for self-protection. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Gaudens, and a lot of other good points in the chat around engaging and empowering caregivers and parental organizations. Mikiris, you made a good point about the issue of lack of disaggregated data on the experiences and contributions of persons with disabilities in conflict. And Isabel saying we need to align international humanitarian laws with human rights laws. But now I see another hand raised. So, Wanja.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Should I put my video on or off?
Up to you.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much, Jessica, for this great initiative, and good evening to all people who are listening. My name is Wanja Maina. I am in Nairobi, Kenya. I wish to talk about 3 issues that I think are very important when we have this conversation. The first issue that I wish to raise is to talk about the colonialism, the kind of priorities that is given to some conflicts and not others. Since I joined the Zoom call, people have been talking about what is happening in Ukraine, what is happening in Gaza, what is happening in the Middle East. So I do understand that there's a lot of humanitarian issues in those regions. I wish to also bring to your attention that there is a very active conflict in Sudan as we speak. I also wish to bring to your attention that currently in Africa, we have 13 active kind of situations of lack of peace and conflict. What am I saying, Jessica? What I'm saying is that it cannot be that some conflicts are seen to be more equal than others. It cannot be. There's a lens that we need to use, a lens that we need to appreciate, and also decolonize how we view different priorities when it comes to humanitarian suffering. So therefore, this is a personal appeal for us to also think about conflict in the continent and empower Africans through this kind of situation. Issue 2 is that whenever there are issues around mediation, high-level peace building missions, high-level situations that are asking for peace, most of the representatives in those kind of setups is actually usually men. Now, in some few instances, there is representation of women. By now, because we know of our gender norms, the women will rarely speak, and what's more, they already are outnumbered when it comes to delegation. I think the situation can only be worse when it comes to people with disabilities in situations where there is high-level boardroom negotiations and mediation to keeping missions. For example, there has been a lot of work that is done in Nairobi around the situation in South Sudan. My question is, how then do we also empower people with disabilities, particularly those who are young, to be able to also effectively engage in those kind of negotiations? What are the gaps, if you ask me? I think my first gap would be the technical skills. You know, when you go to a boardroom, you also want to speak around issues that are communal issues. It's not enough to say, hey, I'm here, I'm a person with a, you know, it's not enough. You have to talk about the communal issues and the broader issues that are affecting the people. So, Jessica and your team, how about ensuring that most of the leaders of people with disabilities are accredited mediators? How do you ensure that they have been trained around issues of alternative dispute resolution? How do you ensure that they have been given that kind of education and peace building education so that when we get into the boardroom, we can talk about these issues? Lastly, in most of our contexts, like in Kenya, we always have unique, interesting situations around conflict and elections. So when we talk about a place like Kenya, right now we are peaceful to a large extent. Of course, Kenya is big, and there could be situations around the border, where we border with Somalia. There could be some situations, but generally we are peaceful by many standards. However, towards election time, like around this time, we are having issues of hate speech. You know, tribalism is a big issue in some of these countries. Before you know it, we end up now having a full-blown post-election situations. My question is, what are some of the programming that we can do for us so that even as we engage in leadership broadly, we can also be trained around issues of mediation, alternative dispute resolution, peacekeeping, so that even as we monitor the political situation in our respective countries, we can be able to move and be of use in those broader contexts. Those are my contributions. Overall, women with disabilities are almost at the bottom of the barrel because of many things, because of social norms, because of the intersectionality. And also to first to commend you for the great work you did, even in terms of reaching out to women with disabilities, but to request for more, request for more opportunities to travel abroad, to request for more to travel to do benchmarking, to request for more to be empowered, because women with disabilities are quite capable once they are given an opportunity. Those are my contributions. And also to get a bit political and say that I stand with the people of Gaza, I stand with the people of Sudan. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanja. And I also really loved the point that you made about the other intersectionality identities to keep in mind, even within the persons with disabilities group. So, you know, keeping in mind that there's even less women with disabilities that are in these positions when the opportunities arise. I also saw Mercedes made the point that there should be accountability frameworks for states to ensure the inclusion of persons with disabilities. So I think continuing to expand on national action plans and the commitments that some people made at the Global Forum this year. I think we have that now. Any other comments to the second question before we go to the final one? Okay, so then the final question for the group is, what challenges do persons with disabilities face to participate and lead in peace processes? And what are, and here's the important part, because I know there are many challenges, what are strategies to address these challenges?
Well, I've seen a lot of challenges persons with disabilities face in relation to peace. I experienced this in about 2018. The peace agreements between government and institutions, they fail to involve persons with disability. But personally, I managed to run to Ethiopia and made consultations and try to find out how inclusive is the process. They told me, sorry, we forgot. We never invited any representation of persons with disabilities in this peace-building exercise. So I was like, these are issues that affect me in my country. We have women, young girls, and older persons. How could we forget to involve such persons? So I think policies must be very inclusive for persons with disability in any peace and conflict agreements. So we no need to leave persons with disability in such processes. So we did a lot of advocacy to achieve this. I've already experienced that. So I really had to fight hard so that we can really have a representation, at least 30% will be very good. So that's really what I experienced in Ethiopia. And it's a very big challenge that we are always forgotten.
Thank you, Caroline. Now going to MD Maruzman Khan.
Thank you so much, Jessica. I think whenever we discuss about the challenges faced by the person with disabilities to participate and lead in peace process, I think there are lots of problems. So for sake of discussion, I'll mention a few points here, and I think I'll send you an email in details the problem the person with disabilities are faced in their participation and lead in peace building. So maybe you are aware in Bangladesh, all offices is closed now. So it will open after 3 days, but I will send you the email tomorrow or day after tomorrow. However, I am mentioning here the 2 or 3 important points, the challenges that people with disabilities are faced. First of all, accessibility. You see, accessibility not only for the physical accessibility, the lack of accessibility in education system, accessibility in health system. So there are many barriers, many problems for person with disabilities. So this makes a problem that they cannot participate in the leading position or leading peace process. So another lack of I think is it legal assistance the people with disabilities need, because there are laws but implementation is less. So this is a big problem that they cannot go ahead, especially women with disabilities. And the most vital challenge women with disabilities they are facing in this region, GBV, gender-based violence. It's a big problem due to financial problem, due to their skill, due to social norms, due to political participation. So gender-based violence is a great problem. And the other one is safe space problem. In terms is like the feminism approaches, there is very a critical problem they face because women with disability, they cannot move, they cannot go to school, they cannot go to hospital to take their treatment because some of the stigma and the religious problem. So altogether, this makes the problem the person with disability. This is the main challenges, and I think I am discussing is in favor of the discussion, but I will send you an email in detailing the problem the person with disabilities are faces, especially in Bangladesh, more specifically in women with disabilities. So thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you so much for giving me the opportunity.
No, thank you. And just to say too, for everyone else who wants to add anything from today through email, we welcome that. So Thomas, I go to you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, sorry. So I would to raise a couple of points. I think it's good to hear, especially now, like perspectives from the field. But to Jessica's question and what we have kind of pondering is that there was this: what are the obstacles of persons with disabilities in peace processes? At least I would say that. With Abilis stakeholders that I have talked to in some of our programmatic countries, the whole concept of peace process, first of all, is slightly unclear and it varies a lot. For example, in Ukraine, it's very relevant to armed conflict and peace, but the peace process is not actually existing yet, and there are not yet local mediation efforts because it's like a upper scale political question between armed parties. Whereas in Somalia, we were able to do the toolkit, and it's based on these very regional processes and regional consultation. And I kind of have the feeling that this might be the case in Syria, but I have only been able personally, I think Nawaf would know more, been able to talk to one OPD in Syria. So it's very fragmented. The second point, I think, just would like to say that I don't really think we are yet at the point of strategical approach here, that there could be a strategy to be implemented because on these issues, strategical support would have to be like multi-donor effort. I don't really think actors in the sphere. So I would like to raise a little bit of discussion that we now have FCA and good people probably from the whole network of religious peacemakers. And then you have Abilis that operates as a disability disseminated information provider as a kind of disability think tank here. So if we want to proceed, in a strategical ways, I would also like to raise the point that who is missing? Who do you see from the stakeholder field? That you have Abilis, you have Religious Peacemakers Network and Fincher's Aid. So who would be, of course, OPDs on the ground, but who are like the relevant? Who would need this the most? Thanks.
Thank you, Thomas. Some critical questions to raise to the group. I see the next hand is MD Jahinger.
Yes, can you hear me again?
Yes.
Okay, so already my colleague Monir Bhai raised accessibility issue. I would like to express this area like this way. We have the challenges, as because I am living with disability already, I say that in the context of Bangladesh and all over the world, our first challenge is negative attitude and social stigma. Second is the physical infrastructural barrier with or without disability for both, particularly those who are living with disability and using the assistive aids. And third things is the policy barriers. We have lots of policy, but lots of policy conflicts together again. And we are focusing, considering the charity approach, we are behind from the human rights development approach. From the duty bearers, it's another big challenges. So weaker commitment by the existing so-called mainstream development actors. It's a national, international, even UN. So all are not addressing disability issues, considering their equity and equality. This is another challenge. And finally, another challenge is the government side. So always they are changing the people. We are making awareness, advocacy, and campaign process. The people always are transferring process, so they are moving. So we had to start again and again from the very beginning. This is another big challenges for us. So lack of togetherness among the OPDs and the development sectors. So we have divided philosophy and divided development concept. So that's why we are facing, and we are always living in behind, and we are always marginalized in the development sector. So lack of access in education, vocational skill training, employment, empowerment, and other political and social inclusion. This is another challenge for us in the mainstream process. Lack of strong commitment by the government, ruling or opposition parties, and all the political groups at the same time from the high authority of the government officials. So, and finally, it's a huge challenges for the communication etiquettes and negative the lack of communication with the people with disabilities by the development actors, both in government and non-government sectors. So this is the basic challenges for us, and limited investment by the government as well as by other development actors to empower the people with disabilities and their organizations equitably, considering the other minority issues. It's over to you.
Thank you. And I see we have a
Hi,
new,
Jessica.
yes,
I can't raise up my hand. Can I say something?
yes, go ahead, Florence.
Yeah, okay. I hear the biggest challenge is really exclusion, discrimination, and stigma. But I believe there could be strategies, and the solution are within us ourselves. The first strategy is by the Committee on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. We have these experts who must make a pronouncement on Article 11, humanitarian response, by developing a general comment to interpret the state parties' obligations, because many state parties are party to the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So when the committee interprets the obligation to promote inclusive humanitarian response, including inclusive peace processes, then governments will adhere. The other strategies for development partners and donors, such as the Finnish Church Aid, Abilis Foundation, the United Nations, and other donors, must condition government to ensure that they put in place strategies to guarantee the inclusion of persons with disabilities in peacemaking processes. This they can do by making sure that they provide a solid plan upon which they can report on the progress of implementing peaceful processes. Organizations of persons with disabilities are also very important stakeholders who must play a big role in putting in place campaigns to promote disability inclusion in peacemaking processes. You can write position papers, we can write policy briefs, we can complain to the UN. We have complaint mechanisms put in place by the UN Convention on the Rights of Persons with Disabilities. So we can institute petitions in our own countries, and when remedies fail, we will go to the committee to make a pronouncement on a case for discrimination in the peacemaking processes. These and many other strategies will do well in promoting inclusive peacemaking. Thank you.
Thank you, Florence. Now I'm going to Eric.
Hello everyone. I just shared my presentation in the chat room. Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm Eric Odhiambo Ndati of Kenya Prisons. Among some of the challenges could be stigma and lack of acceptance among some of our members. Apart from that is physical challenges of being there in person. And the last one would be accessibility or underrepresentation. I mean, underrepresentation and lack of perspective as to challenges that we undergo. So I had the 3 points. And thank you so much for organizing this.
Thank you, Eric. Now I go to Brenda.
Yes, Jessica, first, let me thank you. Am I audible enough?
Yes.
Yes, I joined the meeting when I was still in the car. I'm still in the car, but I've stopped. I have been following everything. So myself, I want to bring this conversation from the education angle, because myself, my name is Brenda Kiema. I'm a disability inclusion officer at Tangaza University. I'm also a lecturer in the same university, and we have over 38 students with different types of disabilities. And some of them, they joined the university from conflict areas. And when we have, because I meet them on monthly basis just to listen to them and to follow if they have any issues of learning and all that. One thing that I have discovered with those who are coming from conflict areas, who have really experienced war, especially those who came from South Sudan, anytime in Kenya we are having problems like last year when we had the issue of Gen Zs and many people died and Kenyans were so sad, I could see it was affecting them directly, and they could tell me, we don't know the cost of peace until when we lose it. The moment we lose it, we will understand, because Kenya has never been in war. Kenya, even if people have been displaced, is not like what has been happening in their countries. And so based on that, because I remember there was a time, Jessica, you invited me again in this, but I didn't avail myself. And today I really wanted to be in this space. What we started doing, we have the program which was headed by Father Innocent on issues of the same. It is to make sure that sometimes we unpack what the policy says about everything. And one of the most important thing is that, first of all, to take them through their rights as person with disability, and also about their own voices. But the sad bit is that you find many of them do not make it to the university, or they don't get to the access education that will equip them. That's a major challenge. Will equip them even to understand how they can even speak about their own challenges, about what they are going through as persons with disability. And then through our own counseling department, we introduced at something like an open dialogue for those who came from the conflict space, because it is even affecting their results, affecting their academic results. Like one student from South Sudan who always keeps telling us that he feels sometimes when he's in class, he can start hearing the sounds of guns. He can start hearing people wailing, because he was rescued by UNHCR, and then he was based at Kakuma. Then now he joined our university. So basically, persons with disability, they need, first of all, to be educated on that line of peace building so that they become the protagonist of their own issue, and also to speak to the world how it is for a person with disability to find themselves in the conflict. Like when I use the same example that I've used for last year, many persons with disability who have been caught on crossfire in town. And you could see, even if they'll be rescued, those sounds remain in them. So they also need to undergo therapy and all that. So organizations that are focusing on peace building, issues of conflict, because what I'm seeing in this world is like we will really take a long time to even realize a true peace in the globe. So what we need to do is to see how we can mitigate or even address what is at hand. And one thing that needs to be done, it is an awareness to the persons with disability to be aware of these kind of conflicts and what they should really do, who they should call, who they should communicate to, whom they should trust. Because myself, I'm a person with disability, and most of the time we don't trust everybody. You may share what you're going through, the trauma and all that, and the person you're talking to him, it's not an issue. So we need even through this program of peace building, maybe to avail the channels of communication and how there could be like an intervention in case of that. Yeah, so I'm just speaking from the education perspective, academic, where I can give my points. Thank you, Jessica.
Thank you, Brenda. A lot of really good points there. See we have about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to now go to the last three hands. Mekeres.
Okay. Hi, Jessica. Hi, everyone. My name is Magdas Prahanu. I am from Ethiopia. So thank you for inviting me. So my contribution is just a quick one, which is I work with the deaf community here. So my contribution is related with the deaf community. So one of the significant challenge that hinders the deaf community's engagement in peace building effort or processes is the communication gap here in Ethiopia. Even public services are systematically exclude the deaf community in Ethiopia because Ethiopian Sign Language is not recognized as a working language. So this ultimately obstructs your ability to participate meaningfully in peace building effort, not only in peace building effort, in general in development process. So therefore, the strategy is to overcome this must be just twofold. Primarily, maybe it's advocating for the official recognition of Ethiopian Sign Language as working language, as I'm currently doing. Until this is achieved, it's crucial to build maybe a capacity of public sector workers in Ethiopian Sign Language and make information materials accessible in different formats. For instance, within the upcoming election in Ethiopia, I think we need to prepare materials in various accessible formats so that the deaf community can vote and contribute meaningfully to the peace process that we are currently advocating for. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mekeres. Going to Caroline.
Thank you, Jessica, for this opportunity. Well, I just have a recommendation. I've seen that we have really discussed much and there's a lot really to deliver, but the challenge is limitation of time. And persons have a lot of submission. So I was requesting Jessica and Abilis Foundation and FCA and other organizations, if it's possible to plan and perhaps organize a conference where persons with disability can come and discuss, debate issues of concern relating to peace and peace building. We have a lot to express and we have a lot of strategies to have solutions. But we really need to get platform. I know this call is very important, but it's also limited by time. That is my recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you,
And then
Caroline.
going to Abid Lashari.
Hello, this is Lashari from India, Pakistan. We're very happy to be part of today's meeting. We have also worked with the Abilis Foundation, and Abilis Foundation is doing a lot for the disabled people organizations throughout the world. And you know, the person with disabilities are often excluded from the peace building processes, yet they are among the most affected conflict and instability, especially in Gaza. You can see there is a big creation of disability. The disability ratio is rising in the world, but we are not raising voices against the wars. So this is our humble request to Abilis Foundation, International Disability Alliance, and our network, that we must realize that this is a big loss of the world, and we should raise awareness throughout the world. Wherever the war is there, it is rising the disability ratio. Especially, we should raise voices for the Gaza. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lashari. And I see that there were some other good points made in the chats. And I think a really good one to really end on, which is Rele Buhile and Agnes and Isabel all raised the critical point that the persons with disabilities, movement and group is not homogeneous. It's very diverse, and so being able to unpack and understand the different diverse viewpoints and needs is critically important in this discussion. Any final comments before I go to our closer? Okay, yes, Gaudens.
It's just to thank you for organizing this space and recommend that from now onwards, we keep on being connected, strategizing to make sure that the issues that you have been discussing here are also addressed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ganan. So yes, as next steps, we will be sharing the recording and the notes taken from this meeting. And so we'll be in touch with you all about next steps also on the toolkit development for those that are interested in continuing to follow along and helping to shape that. So please, you have my email in case you have any questions, but I will now turn it to Amu Urnanen, who is the Disability Inclusion Advisor at FELM, to give closing remarks. And thank you all so much for your wisdom and your time today.
Thank you. Actually, I am not working for FELM anymore. I'm the chairperson of Abilis, and I think I was supposed to speak in this role. So yes, but anyway, thank you very much for this occasion. It was very important for me to hear your views and the understanding and what kind of perspectives you have, because that's very important. I think that we need both very practical information and very practical views, and also theoretical approaches, because with theoretical approaches we can build sustainable and good practices also. A couple of points that I want to make are that disability is an umbrella kind of a term, so it applies to many kinds of situations and definitions, and also definitions of disability vary in different countries, which also makes this more complex. No wonder that disability has been kind of ignored in politics, because it is not an easy issue for politicians and for decision making and for preparations. And also during this event, I heard about many different kinds of needs and many different kinds of perspectives on disability inclusion. So it is, and this is important. This is very important, because disability is a diverse subject. It's important to bring out the diversity of disability, and it's important to understand that we are talking about a process, because a lot of times I hear that people want to make disability inclusive, and they just want to tick boxes and then imagine that this is done. No, we are not talking about something that can be done and finalized, because this is a process, really. And in each step of the process, we will hopefully get better at this. And one thing that I want to bring out is that, or I want to emphasize, is power. Yeah, I'm also involved in politics, and I know that a lot of disability inclusion has to do with who has the power, and it's very important that there are politicians who are disabled themselves, because then they will make sure that they have the tendency to make also politics that provide disability inclusion. So I want you to keep in mind that it's not only having OPDs involved, which is important, of course, but it's also very important to think about who had the power and make sure that some of the people who have power are disabled themselves. So maybe this is my final thought about it. And this was a very, very good event. Thank you very much for everybody.
Thank you,
Have a
Amu.
nice day.
Have a nice day, everyone. We look forward to following up with you. And if you are in New York for CRPD, feel free to reach out. We're here.